Hi, Paul. How are you?
Hi, Ching.
Can you hear?
Yes.
Okay. I was in the middle of it. I was such a worry about there's no audio. Welcome, Paul Chihara, composer.
Hello, everybody. Hi.
It's my guest today. Thank you so much. We already have 3 audience. Wow. Awesome.
Okay.
So, Paul, do you still remember how you met me?
Yes.
How?
Was my goodness, how many years ago when you were with the Shanghai Trio?
No, Jade String Trio.
I mean the Shanghai String Trio.
Jade.
String Trio.
Yeah.
And I think I went to a performance of yours, sponsored by Victoria Bond, and but she had suggested that you perform my string trio, and the performance was wonderful. And then we recorded it for Bridge Records, and it was very well received. And I hope that we can play some of it for our friends today. But in any case, that was about 10 years ago. Can you remind me? I'm getting old now, so everything seems like
doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. We had a history. Yeah, that was a while ago. Yeah. I have not been playing enough these days, so I do a lot of video works and media stuff. So how are you, Paul?
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just for a little history.
Yeah.
About 3 weeks ago, I turned 82.
Oh my God!
And I've been noticing that many famous people are passing away now, and they're all about 82.
Yeah.
But I'm feeling better than I have ever. And it's funny, this isolation that we are all going through. Yeah. Whereas for some people, it's difficult. I know. For example, at first, it was very difficult for me. I lost a concert in Tokyo that I very much wanted to go to. It was Yuji Takahashi doing his farewell concert, for which I had written some pieces. I was to give a lecture at Shanghai at the conservatory. Yeah. And then I had a concert with the Orpheus Chamber Orchestra for the Kennedy Center, to be followed by the same program at Carnegie Hall of my arrangements of Duke Ellington. And the entire evening was my arrangements and orchestrations. All of that was canceled. Now, they say it'll be rescheduled. But, one of the things, at the old age of 82, I've seen enough of life to know that almost nothing is rescheduled, even though we say it's going to be. But so at first I was a little bit disappointed, but it's turned out that it's been a blessing for me. These 4 months living in isolation with just my cat, Momo, and my wife, Carol. Yeah. It's actually been a blessing. I've been getting more commissions now than before. For some reason, people know that I'm available and not tied up by a UCLA or NYU. Yeah. And it's a blessing. It's wonderful to be reminded of what prompted me to become a composer in the first place, is because I was young and wanted to write music, and I didn't want to do anything else. And it's wonderful. I'm filled with memories of nostalgia.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
In fact, I'm just writing a trio right now, not a string trio, but a piano trio. I just finished it. I finished it this morning for the new Horzovsky trio, a very, very fine group. And anyway, so I'm lucky. I'm getting work, and I'm producing. All right, what else?
That's great. Yeah. That's great. So we already have a friend of yours, Sherry Grant, said hello from New Zealand.
New Zealand, yes.
I said hello back. Yeah. So on the right-hand side, you can see people make comments if you want to. You can see.
Oh, is that so? Right.
On the screen. But anyway, so now, Paul, speaking of you, become 82 years old, but you look really wonderful. And can you tell us a little bit about your upbringing? Like, I know you were born in Seattle and everything. So tell us a little bit more about, your family and your upbringing.
Well, of course, I'm Japanese American. We call ourselves Nisei. That means second generation. But my generation of Nisei were practically in Japan. My parents had just come over. And if you remember, not you, but people know the history of the Second World War, which began officially on December 7th, 1941. There was a great deal of problems with the Far East for the 20 years before that. And my parents had just come to America. So when the war began in 1941, I was 4 years old when we were taken away. The FBI came to my father to our home in Seattle, knocked on the door the very evening of December 7th, 1941. That very evening, they knew exactly where we lived. They put him in handcuffs without a lawyer, without habeas corpus, and they took him away for the duration of the war. Now, I'm not an angry person. I haven't started a group called Nisei Lives Matter. But we live in times that now remind me of the years of my upbringing. All right. So that's my background. My parents had just come from Japan. We lived believe it or not, in Chinatown in Seattle. Why? Because there was no Japantown, obviously, anywhere. In fact, not even in Japan. If you go to Tokyo, you won't find Japantown. That's a joke.
Ha 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 ha.
Thank you. All right. Why did the Japanese people live in Chinatown? Because they felt more accepted there, even though the resident Chinese people had very strong feelings against the Japanese imperial government doing terrible things. We knew all about Nanking and so forth in America, whereas my relatives in Japan didn't know anything about it. Isn't that an interesting thing?
Yeah.
So in any case, I grew up, and it's the funny thing about how life is. It seems that warfare has always been a part of my life. Right after that, I started playing music when I was in the relocation camp. It was called Minedoka from 42 to 1945. During our entertainments, I would sing, started to play the violin. So I was a little entertainer, like a vaudeville entertainer. And in an odd sort of way, that experience pretty well shaped who I am now. So to this day, though, people thought of me originally as an avant-garde composer, and then later as a classical composer, and then as a movie composer, and finally as a ballet composer, I was none of those things. I was always just somebody who liked to have fun with music and entertain people and make them laugh.
Your cabaret.
Yes. I've been lucky. I've had very good teachers. I won prizes, so I was able to study with the legendary Nadia Boulanger in Paris and won the Lili Boulanger Award. This was as a very young person. I studied with Gunther Schuller, and I got my first scholarship to Tanglewood by auditioning for Leonard Bernstein. So I've always been in the shadow of greatness, or in the limelight, right?
Right.
And that's given me a very special view of what it is to be a musician. To me, a musician is about having fun and entertaining people. I know about 12-tone music, and I know all about Monteverdi and so forth. But you know what? Those people, they were entertainers too.
Right.
Over the years, as you probably know, I was in Hollywood. I did my first movie in 1975 with an unknown actor named Sylvester Stallone. I was immediately hired at Universal, and so I worked in the studios until 1999, when the studio system in Los Angeles basically collapsed.
Oh.
So I've been in the studios, but also I've been at UCLA, and now I'm at NYU. And I've worked on Broadway. I worked with the Ellington Band for about 10 years, Mercer Ellington Band.
Yeah.
And the arrangements that we were playing, I wrote with Mercer's blessings and with the approval of Baldwin Mills, his publisher, because they felt a very good job arranging his Broadway show, Sophisticated Ladies. But I was lucky. It was Gunther Schuller who got me that position with the Ellington estate. And it was fun for me to make arrangements but good arrangements, not Muzak arrangements, not Boston Pops arrangements, good arrangements, excuse me, Boston Pops, but of music that was already wonderful. And that's always been my métier. I've always felt that I'm a composer and an arranger. I do my own orchestrations because that's so much a part of what music is, you know.
Right. So tell us a little bit about, at the opening, we played Harlem Quartet, playing your arrangements of Duke Ellington's Take the A Train.
Well, there wasn't a Harlem string quartet when I was working on these arrangements.
Oh, okay.
Thus, that particular version that you see on YouTube is a fabulous, fabulous performance. That was the very first Harlem string quartet. Some of the people, the first violinist is the same, Melissa White, the second violinist, and there are several people have changed, but some are still there. But my contact with the Harlem String Quartet was a great violist, Miguel, who plays many, many solos in this. Miguel was a student of Paul, not Paul Polibnik, but the great violist out in Los Angeles now. My brain doesn't work. I'll think of it in a moment. And it was he that I was writing for. And when I made this arrangement, I made an arrangement with a huge solo for the viola. And I can share something with our audience right now. In the days when Ellington was one of the great bands, but he was a black band, of course, performing in white society, very often when he went out to Long Island, to the Hamptons to perform, some of his audiences were somewhat uncomfortable with all of the saxophones and things, you know? So they also had to bring string instruments. And I heard this from the band members. I haven't seen it in books, and no one's ever told me this, but the individual players, the old timers, Ray Brown, Jimmy Cleveland, these great players, they had to play, like, for example, all of the saxophones played viola. They played viola.
Poor viola part.
Ray Nance, a great trumpeter, played the violin. And when they played Take the A Train, each of them did his arrangement. I mean, made his own improvisation. They did it on strings, but remember, they did not study at Juilliard with Galamian. They didn't study Shevchik. They didn't know the, quote, classical technique. They played like they played everything, by ear and by heart. And so when I heard their performances of strings of Duke Ellington, I thought, wow, that's quite another way of looking at string instruments. So I was strongly influenced, not by going to school, but by being in the company of these fabulous musicians.
Yeah.
So that's been a part of I've tried to bring something of that inspiration into whatever I do in concert music. I work very often now with the Orpheus Chamber Orchestra, and before that I was with the Los Angeles Philharmonic and the Cleveland Orchestra and San Francisco Ballet. I've been with very good classical orchestras, but I've tried to bring in something of the spirit of show business, of jazz, Tin Pan Alley, and Black America, and klezmer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So let's talk about let's see. I want to show your website has a couple of let's see if we can find it. Oh, so yeah, Elan Ballet. I think this one you went there in 2012 to China.
To Beijing, yes.
To Beijing, right? And did a ballet with the Chinese ballet company. And I remember you wrote me email then. You were like, oh, I'm going to Beijing, you know. And then so
I went there 3 times. I taught at the Central Conservatory of Music, and I worked with the Dalian Theatrical Troupe, which is a world famous.
You can hear right now?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm gonna go fast forward a little bit. Oh, I can. Sorry. Okay. Looks very modern. So this looks like a very high tech, isn't it?
It
Very
was a wonderful production. We worked on it for 2 years. The orchestra was players in Beijing. They were fabulous.
yeah.
They had a young girl. She must have looked like 10 years old, which means she was probably 30. But she was a percussionist. I wrote a really difficult mallet part. I always do. I've worked with a lot of great percussion players in Hollywood, on Broadway, and with jazz players.
Yeah.
People who can play. And I wrote a really difficult part. She knocked it out in our first rehearsal. Just sight read it. I know she sight read it because I just got the part to her that morning.
Mm.
And it's funny. I grew up in an era in which China was always thought of as a third world country. Now they think of us as that, I think. But anyway, I remember I went to China with my wife, and as soon as we landed and got into the city, we thought, this ain't no third world country. It makes New York look like a third world country. And the people were all the girls, they looked like something out of The Devil Wears Prada. So that was a very popular movie then. And in any case, having said all that, when I went to the first rehearsal, the orchestra, which was primarily members of, I guess, Beijing Symphony Orchestra and others, they were excellent, but they could play. And I made the mistake when I first stood before that orchestra. I don't speak any Mandarin. That is my ignorance, but I speak Japanese. So I started to say, Minasama, watashi wa, and I began to speak a little bit in Japanese. I thought fellow Asians speaking them, and they all put their head down like that.
Uh-huh.
My wife came running up to me and said, stop that. They hate So I said immediately in my good American accent, friends, I'm an American. I teach at UCLA. And all of a sudden, the orchestra just brightened. And somebody raised his hand and said, I studied at USC. Somebody else said, I studied at Juilliard. And all of a sudden, we were brothers. Isn't that the world we live in?
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny.
And they were good. It was, for me, a fabulous experience.
Yeah. I want to say hello to a couple of people here. You brought a lot of guests on our show. First of all, Sherry, and then we have John de la Paz. He said, Maestro, we met about 12 years ago at UCLV. I played clarinet on one of your works. I asked you then when you would write a clarinet sonata. Any plans yet? You see that? Then we have Enrico, Enrico, Enrico Elias. Great to see you, Paul. Can you see people's comment on your computer? Oh, you can. Okay, you click on comment. Can you click on your computer? I think Paul can now see your comments. There's see on this panel on the right hand side, there's a comment. You can click and you can see people.
Oh, Enrico Elise.
Yes, and then
Enrico.
On top of that, it's John.
Okay, I don't know that, but Enrico, are we speaking with Enrico right now?
No, they're just making comments. Okay?
I see.
We're not talking to each other. They can type whatever they want to type. They can ask questions. And then you have 12-tone technique. Go Paul, Mike Broom. Oh,
my goodness. A wonderful, wonderful composer. He's going to become the new Stephen Sondheim if he isn't already.
And then you have Simone, stylist, #1. Hi, Paul. John Muster here. John Muster.
Really?
I thought John Muster lives in my compound. John Muster is a singer, right? Composer, pianist.
Yeah.
Yeah, he lives in Morningside Garden.
Very good composer.
Yes. Hi, John. I'm your neighbor. I'm in building 4. And then you have Penelope, Knuth.
Yeah.
So anyway, say hi, hello to everybody, and you guys can you can ask Paul some questions if you want to. Michael, we have people. ARCHIVAL Records. Hi, Paul.
Records, yes.
Kara and John.
Oh, I see. Yes.
Yeah, writing from Seattle. Thank
My
you.
hometown, friends and relatives.
Yes, Enrique. Yes. So, so Paul, now, when did you started to realize you are going to be a composer? Like in what
Ever
age?
since I was a child.
Oh, really?
Absolutely.
Wow.
I've never had anything like writer's block or any. That's all I ever wanted to do.
Yeah.
I never. And one of the things about growing up in a relocation camp and knowing that the whole world really hates you was that very early in life I realized that what really made me happy was music.
Mm-hmm.
I pursued it not because I wanted to become rich or famous or get laid or all those things that people talk about. That's all I wanted to do, for the same reason that I eat apple pie.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do that to get rich. And so I knew from the very beginning I was going to, of all the gifts that God could have given me, he gave me the one that I'll never get bored with,
Yeah.
So I'm very, very fortunate there. I wanted to say something about Enrico, who evidently is one of our guests. Enrico is a pianist. He's an Italian, believe it or not. And he was at the University of Las Vegas when you were there on the faculty. Now he's at the University of Toronto.
Oh.
And he has performed some of my music, some of my new music. And his wife is a former student of mine also, Karen Park, who's also a very good composer.
Yeah.
So it's a small world, and it's a good world. It's one of the things about our lives. We don't have to be rich and famous in order to connect with the richest possible fraternity and sorority of people.
Right. That's well said. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, Paul, tell me a little bit between composing orchestral works and film works, and theatrical works. So a little bit about the process. For instance, if you have to write something for a play or for a film, do you have to know the content of the film really well before you start to write? It's a very different process, isn't it?
Yes. It's like getting to know a person, There's no formula for it. I just completed a piece. I just finished the trio for the Horzowski trio. But before that...
Can I interrupt you for a second? Can you find your camera, your computer camera? Where is the camera? Yes. Talk to me. Look, if you can, look at the camera.
I'm looking at the camera.
Yeah,
okay.
Then you're looking at me.
Okay, great.
It's kind of weird setting. It's a weird setting.
Okay.
Yeah.
What I'm looking at now is one green eye. I wanted to say this. I think I said earlier in this broadcast that I was born at the beginning of the Second World War. I mean, I was born before that. And all my life, I've somehow been haunted by war. Here's a very strange experience. I just completed a commissioned work for a piano concerto for Hanoi. It's going to be premiered by the Vietnamese National Symphony Orchestra. It was supposed to have been performed September 10th, 2020. That's next month. But because of COVID-19, that season has been canceled. And they said we will reschedule it.
Yeah.
Now, I got a letter from the ambassador of Vietnam to the United Nations, and it said, 2020 is the 25th anniversary of the peace treaty between our two countries, that is the Republic of Vietnam and the United States of America. Now, I'm of the generation, remember I was born in 1938, as was, by the way, 20 or so very, very well-known American composers. My generation was haunted by Vietnam. That changed how America was viewed by the world, especially in the Far East. And all of us of that fighting age had to find a way not to get drafted. Eventually, I had to join the reserves, and believe it or not, I became a sergeant. Why? Because I was the only one in the whole regiment that could read.
I was in Chinese Army.
But the reason I say that is my generation of serious composers had to do something that no generation before us had to do. That is go to the universities. Now think about it.
Yeah.
Everybody now goes, and I've been a professor for all my life.
Yeah.
Everybody goes to the universities to get a degree in composition.
Yeah.
But the people we studied, not one of them before us ever went to the university. Beethoven never went to the university. Mozart never went to the university. Think about that.
Yeah.
Not even Palestrina and people who were with the church.
Yeah.
So this notion that serious music has to be somehow groomed at a place of higher learning. It would be like going to in the 3rd century BC, going to Athens and meeting Aristotle to learn how to write 12-tone music. I mean, it's so bizarre what we've created. And you know who created this? My generation.
Yeah. Yeah.
I say that because I've always wanted to get away from what I felt was a kind of watering down of serious music to an academic kind of posture.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I'm very proud of the fact that I still work. And by the way, the letter that I got from Vietnam, they reassured me they are going to perform it.
Yeah.
The pianist is a wonderful pianist, born and raised in Hanoi, who studied at the Moscow Conservatory, and then at Juilliard, and now teaches at Hunter College here in New York.
Yeah.
Her name is Quinn Nguyen, or Quinn Nguyen.
Yeah.
And she's going to be performing it. And writing this piece was a real special kind of challenge for me, because among the shows that I did during my heyday in Hollywood was a very popular television show called China Beach that made a star out of Dana Delaney and others. It was a show about the nurses. It was based on their stories, true stories, the nurses who served during the Vietnam War. And while I was doing that show, I met a lot of people coming from Southeast Asia, and they had moved to just south of Los Angeles, to a place that is now called Little Saigon. Westminster, I think it's called. It's near San Diego, anywhere. It's between LA and San Diego. I met a lot of people, and I heard a lot of their popular music. You know, the popular music of the generation of Vietnam during the Vietnam War, which is basically the 70s, was French, of course. It was a lot like Johnny Hallyday and Edith Piaf. I don't know if people are old enough to remember these names. They were like the French version of Ella Fitzgerald and maybe Elvis Presley. And that music sort of influenced how I wrote this piano concerto. I'm not an ethnomusicologist or folklorist. I wasn't trying to find out what Vietnamese ethnic music is like. I wanted to know what the average person would have heard.
Yeah.
So I'm very proud of this concerto, and it's going to be performed next year.
That's great. That's great. So, Paul, I ask our guests if they have any questions for you. Some of them actually did wrote questions. So let's see. Who is this person? Archive Records. Hi, Paul. Cara and John, right, from Seattle. Where are you coming back to the PNV? What's PNV? Pacific Northwest.
Believe it or not, I'm supposed to be going there this year. This year, they're having the 25th anniversary or the 75th anniversary of the founding of the Arboretum, which was created in Seattle. Arboretum, it was created as friendship between Japan and America, before the Second World War, obviously. And now they were going to have this festival, to which I was invited by one of the directors, by the way, of the Seattle Symphony, actually the wife of the director of the Seattle Symphony, to participate, to write music for this. Now, because of, it was supposed to have been a festival. Now, because of the COVID-19, they are not sure what the format will be. But to my friends in Seattle, and I still have friends in Seattle, unless they're tired of me, I'm looking forward to going back. It would be great. I know that Seattle has changed a lot, at least judging from what I see on CNN.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, it's still home for me. So in answer to my friends out in the West Coast and Pacific Northwest,
Yeah.
I think I'll be there sometime this year.
Enrico Elias asked you, Paul Telto.
I thought you'd never ask Enrico. I want to send it to you with the score.
Did you earn him? Did you owe him a piano concerto?
I don't owe him one, but I'll be happy to write him one. I'm a freelance composer. Listen, I'll write for everybody.
Yeah, you're right for everybody.
Yeah. So Enrico, I have written for him, and he has performed my music beautifully. He's a very sensitive musician and a really good one. And besides, there's something about European approach to playing the piano that's different. In a way, that's where I studied. I studied at the Hochschule in Berlin, and I studied at the Paris Conservatoire. And when I was younger and very malleable, I heard a style of performing that has still haunted me. Not that we are not the best players. I believe the best players in the world are here in New York or in Los Angeles or whatever. But there's something about that old world perfume that still haunts me.
Yeah. Speaking of composition, let's look at the work you wrote for Jade String Trio. Actually, no, you didn't wrote for Jade String Trio. You wrote already. We played right after we got the score. So you wrote this piece in, let's say, 1985.
I wrote it for the Sarasota String Festival. And the very good players was Jamie Buswell, was the violinist. Robert Vernon, the principal of the Cleveland Orchestra, was the pianist, and the cellist was a wonderful Tim Eddy. They're all friends of mine, and I was still young, and they were still young, believe it or not. And they played the hell out of that piece. In fact, from that came a commission to write a viola concerto from the Cleveland Orchestra.
Awesome.
And so that piece has always been a very special piece for me, the string trio. By the way, the composers who are in this broadcast listening, I'm sure you agree with me that one of the hardest things to write is a string trio. Everybody wants to, if I start writing for 3 strings, I want to have a second violin. I want to have a balance between the 2 upper voices and the middle voices. String trio is tough. Maybe that's why Beethoven only wrote the 3 early ones, and whereas he wrote 17 sublime string quartets, right? It's a hard piece to write, but it's worth the challenge. And I will say one thing, though. Remember, I'm the generation that created minimalism. So there's a little bit of that in this piece. But most of all, the influence on this piece is actually Beethoven string quartet, the C sharp minor, da, 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 that beautiful theme, that sort of haunts this piece. And I think Beethoven and Brahms, they haunt everything that I write.
Yeah. So Jade String Trio is my trio.
Yes. And it's difficult. You played.
I found this trio in, I think, in 1999. And we played for a good 10 years. We're not performing enough right now because I switched to doing media work now. I'm a violist. So let's hear just a little bit of, I sort of manipulated with the image and Paul's music into this little short clip of first movement. so difficult to play, but so wonderful. Who is this handsome person? Sorry about the technical flaw. Let's see. Let's remove this. I clicked the wrong thing. Then I exited myself earlier.
It sounds good. You people sounded really good then.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And I remember we were making a call on some kind of composer form, says call for score for female composers, Asian female. And then you wrote to us, you said, I am Paul Chihara, I'm not female. Can I also submit my music to you? But I'm Asian, you said. It's so sweet. And your music was so wonderful, so great to perform. And, it's very difficult. It's difficult to play, in sync. And we rehearsed really hard for that performance. And then I think you were happy with our performance at, we played in the St. Paul's Church. Yeah. So thank you for this wonderful gift for us. And,
Ching.
Yes.
There are two things I want to say to everybody who's listening. Number one is I mentioned that I've been involved with war my whole life. Mm-hmm. When I was a young person, when we came back from the relocation camp, the war ended in 1945. That is, the Second World War ended in 1945.
Yeah.
But those of us who were Japanese were still very much hated. I know what it is to be an immigrant in this country. Mm-hmm. But I also know what it is to be the enemy. It's very, very different, trust me. Mm-hmm. But then in 1950, something happened. A new war began. Mm. All of a sudden, we were involved in Korea. Mm. And overnight, we became the good Asians. It's very interesting. And I was by now playing popular violin, things like Fiddle Faddle and Hot Canary. And, My Mama Done Told Me. My Mama Blues in the Night was written, by the way, in 1941, which is when the war began. Isn't that a small world?
Yeah.
All right. The reason I say that is I immediately became a member of a USO troupe, an entertainment troupe that entertained soldiers, U.S. soldiers. And in Seattle, Fort Lewis, Fort Lawton, Sandpoint Naval Base, all of these naval and Boeing aircraft, all of these military installations were there. And I was performing often for soldiers. Looking back, they looked like old men to me because I was like 12. They were 18 and 19. They were children looking back. Mm-hmm. They were strong and they were eager to be patriotic. But it was very interesting for me. I grew up in wartime. And in this time, I began to see soldiers and all they wanted to do was get home. All they wanted to do was see an American girl. Wasn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that being in the USO troupe also put a stamp on how I view music. That I have a PhD from Cornell. I know what it is to be so-called musical elite, but there's nothing elite about music when you're touching somebody who wants to hear a good tune.
Yeah.
That's pretty much my credo. As an old man, I can just confess to it. This is why I'm a musician.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
And the other thing I just want to end with, because a lot of people don't know this. Yeah. When they write the history of the 20th century avant-garde music in America, they're going to talk about the universities and all the rest of this stuff. But you want to know something? Those of us who created it were basically my generation, 1938 composers. Steve Reich, Bill Balcom, Charles Warren, and John Harbison, John Corigliano, Joan Tower, Alan Swilik, all born in 1938. Think about that. And you know what?
Wow.
When we were writing what is now called minimalism, we did not call it minimalism. We called it open form, or pieces that were processed. It did not have a form, it had a process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't know who came up with the term minimalism, but we didn't like that. We would have called it maximalism. I just wanted to say that because there must be some people out there who are musicologists.
All right. So let's continue some of your guests. You brought lots of guests. Bravo. By the way, I'm Ching Juhl. I was a violist. I'm still play the viola a little bit here and there, but I do a lot of media work. And I started this conversation with someone special since March 27th. So today, Paul, you are the number 48 guest on my show. Yes. And I think at the beginning, it was just to connect with my family or teachers. And then later on, it evolved into talking to artists, musicians, politicians, specialists, COVID patient, recover people. So all kinds of people near me, most people I know. Sometimes some friends or manager will send me their own artists for me to talk to. So I always want to talk to you, Paul. So I'm so glad you're here today. And for many of you, please please consider subscribe my YouTube channel, Juhl Media. And also Paul has a very handsome website. We're going to look at Paul's website, okay, later. Now, for question, back to question, 12-tone technique has a question, question to Paul, when orchestrating, is there an instrument family that you always prefer to start with? Or is every project different? I'm sure every project is different. So do you have an instrument in the orchestra you prefer to start with? No?
No. For example, if I have a commission to write for a chorus, I can't start with an instrument. That's a joke, Jim.
Yeah, no, he's talking about orchestra. No, you don't have any prefer. Okay, so violas from last.
I have a sound in my ear. I can hear right now. If you hear this note, everybody, A, F sharp, D, B flat, A. That particular sound, for some reason, has always haunted me. A, F sharp, D, B flat. All right. Then put a C natural above that and a D flat. It's a cluster, but I hear that for some reason. So there are certain pitches that I hear, but I could hear that. There's one sound that I have trouble hearing a lot of. That's the woodwinds for some reason. Maybe because
look at blue dot. Look at the blue dot.
Okay.
Blue dot.
So I'm doing my best.
Sorry, it's a really strange sound.
I'm doing the best I can to.
I know. No, you're doing great. You're doing great. Yeah. So anyway, Penelope Knuth says violist from last century. I guess she's echoing the question of 12th century, 12th tone. Anyway, let's see who else has Paul. Great to see you, Stuart, Bramwell.
This is this young man is from Scotland.
From UK, he said. Yes. Okay.
Yes. And I was a guest.
Excuse me.
I was a guest recently in Scotland at Edinburgh. Actually, it was in Glasgow at the Royal Conservatoire of Music of Scotland.
Yeah.
And he was a very fine composer. I was lucky enough to meet with him, and we've kept up a conversation. I was trying to get him to come to go to USC, even though I'm no longer at UCLA. Still, my colleagues at USC, and USC is really, for me, the gateway to Hollywood.
Yeah.
But he got something better. Not that where he's going is better, but he's going to the school, school in Barcelona, which has a very good film school, and he got a terrific scholarship.
Great.
So USC will have to wait. But I think that when he's through with Barcelona, if there's anything left of the school, that he should come to Hollywood. Now, I urge people to come to Hollywood, not because Hollywood exists. As we know, anybody who's lived in LA, and I've lived there for many years, Hollywood as a studio doesn't really exist. But it's, when I say Hollywood, I mean American commercial music. I mean, the people, it's a truly international community. There are no enemies there. We are all part of the same. We steal from each other.
You're lucky.
You
have both, right? You have the classical world and you have the film world.
But you know something, think about what we're doing right now, what you're doing. You said that, you used to be a violist, you still are, and now you're doing this video thing. What you're doing is actually what's happening to life right now. this COVID-19 is only accelerating what has been happening for the last 50 years, even during my career and in my lifetime. Things are not going to go back to normal, as they said. The new normal is going to be what you're doing right now.
Thank you. Thank you. And we need you to show your shirt, because Nancy Johnson wants to see your shirt. What is your shirt? Because we can't see it. You have to stand up a little bit. Like... Who is that?
That's my cat, Momo. That's Ninja. Ninja.
Yeah, you have so many cats. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your cat before we go back to music.
Well, my cat's name is Momo. Momo means peach. Peach, you know. The most famous story in Japan, especially for children, is Momotaro, which means the peach boy. A peach was opened, and out of it came not a pit, but a little child. It's like Moses, you know. The princess of Egypt said that she found a peach coming down, and she opened it, and there was Moses, something like that. Well, of course, in Porgy and Bess, Sport and Life says that's not really what happened. You know, it was obviously her illegitimate child. But in any case, Peach Boy in Japan becomes one of the great samurai warriors. You know? It would be like, what if George Washington were born in a peach? So Momo is a word that we adore. So anyway, you have some other comments from your friend. Stuart says, when you are coming back to UK, I owe you those fish and chips. Absolutely. I worked in England for 11 years. I had a beautiful flat in Chelsea, provided by the BBC. I worked for Channel 3. I adored it. It was wonderful. You know, the only problem with England is they don't pay enough, but the work is good. I mean, you're working with the best people all the time, you know. we have the best people here in New York and in LA also. I know we have great musicians here. I'm not going to say that other countries are better than America, because I don't believe that. But other countries have some things that we don't have yet. So Enrique made a lot of comments. One of his comments says, tell us about how much you love writing fugues. Fugues? It's very funny he should say that. See, like a lot of Italians, because they come from an old culture, he never forgets anything. I mentioned to him one time that when I was in Paris at the Conservatoire, I was a student of Lili Boulanger's. And at one point, she wanted to know, can I write counterpoint? And I said, yes. So she gave me a canus firmus, and I went home and then came back with 8-part setting of this counterpoint. So she said, you know counterpoint. So then she said, I want you to write a fugue. And she gave me in French a book by Juhl called Traité de la Fugue.
I thought it's the same thing, counterpoint and fugue. Isn't it the same?
Well, you know, what everyone thinks about the French, they really know how to analyze. They analyze German music, and they think they know American music better than we do. I mean, we still say things like cinema verite and montage, and everything comes from the French view of us, you know. So I can write fugues very well. And I'm proud of that. But I want to point out something to you. Among my idols are the great French composers of Impressionism, Ravel and Debussy. If you look at their music, because in order to get the Prix de Rome, which they both, well, Ravel never won it. That was one of the scandals, but Debussy won it, of course. You have to be first prize in fugue before you can even compete in that. That was the rule at the Conservatoire in the 19th and early 20th century. Well, Debussy could write fugues, but look at his oeuvre, look at everything he wrote. Can you name one fugue that Debussy wrote?
I can't.
I can think of two. There are two in Ravel. One is at the end of L'Enfant et les Chertelèges, and the other is from Couperin, one of the piano pieces of Couperin. But they could write fugues, and we've seen them. They are student works of theirs. But that tells you something about the French view. I mean, think about our greatest composer ever, Bach and Beethoven, right? They knew how to write fugues, and they reveled in it. Beethoven went mad over fugues, as you know, and they're among the greatest pieces, as well as being contrapuntally extremely interesting. French don't do that. When they have a certain technique, they hide it. Isn't that interesting? I find that so interesting.
Yeah.
But you know that Debussy could write a fugue when you look at the counterpoint in La Mer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So shall we look at
I have nothing. My fugues.
Shall we look at some your photographs on your website? Okay.
Okay.
So let's see. This is a video. Wait, hold on 1 second.
Really?
Get back. Oh, this is a video earlier we see. Hold on 1 second. Let me make sure we have. Hold on. We need to go back to your Paul Chihara. Okay. Oops. No, not your. So how does a person get how does a person get a Wikipedia made? you have to hire a writer. Where's the photo? So video, film, photo gallery. Okay, here we go. Okay, so can you see?
No.
Right now? You cannot.
All I can see is the Jade String Trio.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Let's get back to here. Back again. Go back again. Paul Chihara. No, Paul Chihara gallery photo. And then let's turn the sound up anyway, just in case. Here we go.
That's Carol, my wife.
Yes, she's a violist.
Violist, yes.
Yes.
That is Sidney Lumet, very famous director.
Yes. So you did the one?
Oh, I've done many things with him. At least 3 movies in a series, and
yeah.
Wonderful.
That's
Glenn Dictorow. I'm sure you recognize.
Yes, the concertmaster.
Before I've written pieces for him and for his wonderful wife Karen Dreyfus, who is a violist.
Yes, Karen Dreyfus. I know her.
And that is John. Oh gosh, he's a
Addison.
John Addison.
Yeah.
John Addison won the Academy Award in 1961 for the score for Tom Jones, a wonderful movie and a wonderful score. Then he wrote for television for America. He did Murder, She Wrote, and so forth. He was a terrific composer. And like a lot of commercial composers from Germany, I hope you're listening, Stuart Bramwell, from England, I mean, his commercial music also had the sort of discipline that comes from very rigorous concert training.
Wow.
And look at that beatific smile. He was like that in his whole soul. That is not a fake smile. He was just a lot of fun.
Yeah. You look like a child.
I was still a child. I'm still a child. I just had more hair then. That is a scene from my Broadway musical called Shogun. That's Peter Carey, who did Jean Valjean in London, and therefore he played the part of the lead in New York on Broadway.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
And that, of course, is Jerry Orbach from Law and Order, television show Law and Order. He was also a very good singer. You know, he made his start in New York. He came from Cleveland originally, but he came in and he did he did the, what is it? Anyway, he did the musical on Broadway for like 20 years.
Oh, wow.
I'll think of it. Everybody in the audience knows who I'm talking about.
He has a good voice. Yeah.
And this is the Ballet Tempest, which I did with the San Francisco Ballet. It was done in Dance in America. It won a number of Emmys when it was produced for television. Yes. That was in 1980.
Wow. 1980. Wow. I was in the Red Army. Okay, here you go. That's you conducting London Symphony.
I conducted the London Symphony. You had to have a beard and have long hair in those days. This was in 1973.
Yes, it fits the style. Yeah, very anti-war. Okay, here we go.
That, believe it or not, is George Crumb.
Yeah, nice.
He is a lovely man. He's from West Virginia. Oh, these lovely ladies you may recognize.
Yes, yes.
And Akiko Myers is on.
Yes.
All right. And the two beautiful girls are 2/3 of the on trio.
Mm-hmm. Right. Very talented girls.
Yeah.
Very great instrumentalists. That's you. Look very serious.
Yes.
And I know these people, Pascal and Amy.
Yes, that's Pascal Roger, the great French pianist.
Yes.
You know, it's a strange coincidence. He studied with Nadia Boulanger the same years that I did, and he won the Lili Boulanger Award the same year that I did in performance, in his case, and I for composition.
Wow.
And that's his wife, Ami Hakuno, from Japan. They are wonderful. And I was lucky enough, they've asked me to write a piece for them. I wrote a piece for two pianos, for piano 4 hands.
Yeah.
And it was a labor of love, because among my favorite pieces were those that I studied in Paris by Debussy, Petite Suite, for example, and one piece after another, simply gorgeous.
And they did a concert where I was filming the festival, and then they hired me the next day to filming their concert.
Oh, yes.
So they did a Bartók, 2 hands concerto, piano and percussion. Yeah.
Yes.
So it was really wonderful. Yeah. So I have I videoed some of their performances.
That is Sir Neville Marriner. Neville Marriner. That's at Tanglewood. He was invited to Tanglewood, I guess, in 1974 to conduct the Boston Symphony.
This is Tanglewood.
I was teaching that year. Yes.
2000. Yeah. On your clip here. Okay. Who is this? Oh.
That's Jamie Horn. That's James Horner.
Yeah.
James was my student for maybe 3 or 4 years. Private student.
He looks really young in there.
Yeah, in fact, he was young when he died, and he died in an airplane crash, a plane that he was riding and flying himself just 2 years ago. Yeah, he was a very lovely man.
So he must be very young.
Well, he was not that young. I mean, I was his mentor, but he was about 15 years younger than I.
Oh, okay.
So he was 60, I think, when he passed away.
Okay. Oh, that's too bad. I did not know that. Sorry about that. Okay, so this is your assistant.
Jennifer Fagry. Wonderful, wonderful musician. She's also does some of my synthestries, but mostly she's like my music. She takes care of me.
Yeah, she takes care of me. Nice.
Yeah.
That's you in China.
Yes, and that orchestra was the orchestra that I used when I was conducting Yulan. And this is a really, really fine orchestra. That, by the way, you may recognize is the concert hall at the Central Conservatory in Beijing.
Oh, wow. 2015, that must be new concert hall. That's Carol again. Hi, Carol. Yes. Nice seeing you again. So that's the end of your
thank you.
Post, of course. So a lot of memories and a lot of great photos. And some people share it. I must send you the set of 36 cat. How cool! I recently wrote. It's funny. Anyway, so yeah. Now let's see. I love some Sherry says I love the viola performed the 10 viola recital with the 2 different principal violists last year, and premiered 5 new viola works written for me. Now I have a question about in terms of just writing as a composer, Paul. So you were from older schools writing with pen and sheet music. So in this day, when you need to write something, do you go into the computer, just do it on the computer on keyboard, or do you still use pen and pencil?
First of all, I do have Sibelius, and of course I had to know. I got into show business, into Hollywood, because I was one of the first teachers in Los Angeles way back in the 70s, teaching analog electronic music, the Moog and the Buchla box.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. But when it came to Sibelius and Finale and score and so forth, whereas I have 2 of those programs, I'm very slow. And so I'm at that stage in my career where I can have the very best of young people who are brilliant, who I paid to be my assistants. Jennifer was the first. I have two here in New York that are both very talented. One of the things I'm very proud of is the people who are my assistants, they work in Hollywood or for Orpheus or whatever. I want people who study with me to realize that it's not just an intellectual process, and then it's not about getting tenure or anything like that. It's about really practicing this wonderful gift of music forever. So in answer to your question, no, I do not use music programs. I don't even use pen. I just write pencil. And most of the time I don't use the piano because I'm a violist, as you know. So I write down my ideas.
Oh, wow. That's
it
wonderful.
comes from when you think I started to write music seriously when I was 9 years old. I started performing when I was 6 in the relocation camp, and I'm 82 now. Do the math. That's a lot of years.
Yeah.
There's nothing else in life I want to do. Things about being that narrow-minded, if you will.
Yeah.
Is that it becomes second nature to you.
So I was going to ask you later, but now I'm asking you now. So if say you, hypothetically, if you were not a musician or composer, what other profession you might have pursued?
That's easy. I always knew that my great interest outside of music was languages. And when I went to Cornell, I was very insecure as a young man. Remember, I was Japanese American. But I got a scholarship to Cornell when I was a junior in high school in linguistics, in study of languages. Thanks to the missionaries that came to the relocation camps. I was brought up Roman Catholic. I speak and read Latin very fluently.
Wow.
So my passion has always been study of languages, language groups, and history. And there's so many things happening today in our world. And I'm not even talking about what's going on in our country, just in general in the world. There's so many resonances with our situation now that goes back time and again in history. And among my interests in life is pursuing and studying that. So if I were not going to be a musician, I'd be a music-loving scholar, probably a linguist.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Let's look at a couple of person said something. I used to perform in a string trio. Oh, Sherry said she used to perform in a string trio all the time. Had to write arrangement as repertoire is not as huge. That's true, Sherry. Yeah.
It's right.
Yeah. So, but still, there's compared to string quartet, of course, it's not a lot. Somebody like your shirt. Archive records like your shirt. Enrico like your shirt. Sherry likes your shirt. Beautiful piece and very fine performance. Congratulations. Thank you very much. I assume you talk about J String Trio. Stuart said, could you tell us about relationship with the James Horner? Any interesting stories?
I have many interesting stories about him. I'm not sure I can tell you them all. For one thing, he was not that much younger than I, and I was somewhat unusual UCLA professor. In fact, at that time, I had already retired. I was tired of being a professor. Even though I had tenure, I quit. And I took a job doing nothing at first until I was finally hired by first Roger Corman and then by Universal. And then the rest is Hollywood history. But James Horner was already sort of in show business already. His father was a production manager, I believe, at MGM. So he already knew something about the business. But James had also studied a little bit at London, at USC. But I think he was attracted and wanted to study with me privately, not at UCLA only, because I was no longer a professor at UCLA, but because of my background that he knew was very much into live music making. I was, at the time that he studied with me, the new music advisor to Zubin Mehta and the LA Philharmonic. I did many concerts with Zubin Mehta. Then I was composer in residence with the LA Chamber Orchestra with Sir Neville Marriner. And I was also the composer in residence with the San Francisco Ballet. So I took him to San Francisco, and he heard for the first time Prokofiev's Romeo and Juliet. And the proof of that is if you look at his first major feature, which is Star Trek, the death of the Enterprise when it goes down in flames. This is number 2, Star Trek number 2. The score is practically note for note the death of Juliet from Prokofiev's Romeo and Juliet. Now, I didn't say that. I will deny having said that. But the proof is in the pudding. But it's all right. I feel that I did a favor to mankind by teaching him all of these wonderful things. So many of the quotes that he uses in his scores, I am the ringleader. Mm-hmm. The movie Willow, for example, about those old people who become young, that movie, the score is Schumann's First Symphony, the Spring Symphony. Anyway, working with James was a lot of fun because we spent a lot of time going out and seeing things, going to the ballet, drinking a great deal of wine, and talking about girls all the time. I mean, he was just... But I'll say one thing about him. There are many people in Hollywood that really didn't like him, resented him. Not because he wasn't a wonderful person, but because he was so honest. He he would say anything about anybody, anywhere. And that rubs people in, particularly in a town like Hollywood, which is like Washington, D.C., a very politically oriented town, But I liked him. And if you look up his website, the only teacher he acknowledges is me. Mm-hmm. Although a lot of people claim to have been his teachers, Jerry Goldsmith, among others,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He
was a good man. Stuart, I want you to know, when I say I know a talented young man, I'm speaking from the heart, and I mean it. Mm-hmm. And you're talented.
Yeah. So I think we're doing wonderful. It's time for us actually to do a rapid fire. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
So rapid fire is just kind of a silly game. I'll ask my guest a question, and my guest is supposed to answer really quick. So the question is short, the answer is rapid. So we'll just have some fun. And so again, thank you guys so much for watching us, to being with us, and thank you, Paul, to be with me today. We should do this more often, right?
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. So, okay, rapid fire. What are you craving for at this minute in terms of food?
I want to get Mexican food, tacos and refried beans. I miss Los Angeles.
Okay, it's happy hour pretty soon. So, what do you usually drink at happy hour in a restaurant?
I usually drink tea. I don't drink any alcohol or do drugs anymore. After having set the world on fire several times, I've been clean and sober for 21 years.
Oh my God, bravo!
I know, I'm no fun at all.
Yeah, you're boring! What is your favorite color?
Blue.
Blue. Ice cream flavor?
Vanilla.
When compared to Los Angeles and New York, one is water, one is city, I guess. No, my question is supposed to be, do you like a place with water or do you like a place with mountain?
Water, of course. All my life I've lived. In fact, 95% of the United States population, 90% lives within 10 miles of water. Major water.
That's nice.
And that's me. I have to be near water. I'm Japanese,
Yes. So, now, are you a good cook? What do you cook usually?
I used to be a good cook.
Oh, yeah?
Yes. Now I'm not a good cook.
Yeah.
I even burn water.
Turn on that timer. Don't forget. Yeah. And so name one or two best eatery place in New York near you.
It's easy. Edgar's Cafe. It's on Amsterdam Avenue. Edgar's named after Edgar Allan Poe, in whose old house this restaurant originally began. It's the best place in town. The owner is Sicilian. The best place in town for pasta pesto.
Wow. Where is pesto?
Yes.
Where?
Edgar's, 91st and Amsterdam.
Oh,
I get a free commission. Everybody who goes there mentions my name. I get a free pasta.
You took me to a place called where they have puff. but I think that place is closed.
Probably, if I took you there.
Yeah, for the breakfast. Yeah, yeah. You were so nice. And before you made a recording.
You know what, Ching?
Yeah.
New York is changing, and it's not going to come back. A lot of those places that we mentioned, they're not there anymore. They can't keep up. They were good because they were able to cut costs, or they could give us very special services, right? A lot of those places cannot pay the rent. They cannot pay their health. And so they're not just boarded up, they're gone. After 4 months, my neighborhood is different.
Yeah, I know. It's too bad.
And the country is changing.
Yeah.
And I think the world is changing. Shanghai, too.
Yeah, yeah. Shanghai is changing. Yeah, I can't keep it up. I feel when I go to Shanghai, I feel like I'm from countryside, you know. So anyway, now other than New York City, other than United States and Japan, what other countries you would like to live for like a 3 month of a year?
Oh, well, you named the ones that I really like. Paris, London. I adore London. New York and Los Angeles. I don't even have a preference there. If you were to ask me which do I prefer, I have them. They're the same city for me. I know the same people in both cities, the same things we do, the same restaurants, the same political view. To me, it's the same city.
Yeah.
I love London. I love Paris. I enjoyed Moscow, and I really enjoyed Beijing, and I love Tokyo. But when you talk about the Far East, they're so different from us in many, many respects. Even though I can speak Japanese and I can't speak any Mandarin, but still, I look Chinese to some people.
Yeah, I know.
But still, I could be comfortable there, and I was comfortable there. After all, I went there 3 times in the last 4 years. You know, I was comfortable there, but it's very different. The Far East is very different, and you know that better than I.
Yeah.
Than the West, you know. But,
yeah. How do you keep yourself not getting fat?
Well, actually, I am getting fat. You know, I think of myself. I'm in my Jabba the Hutt period. But
no, you're not fat.
I'm actually. Thank you for saying that. I take that as a compliment. I don't diet or anything like that. In fact, my doctor says to me, I'm eating too much apple pie, and I said, doctor, you're absolutely right. It's either apple pie or heroin. So she said, go back to apple pie.
Seriously, these days, do you take walks?
Walks? Did you say?
Walk.
Walk? Do I like to walk?
Do you take walks? You know, exercise, walk.
No, I don't. I don't do that. I think Chinese people do that. We don't do that. We Japanese. No. I think it's stupid.
No, walk.
I know walk. W-A-L-K, walk.
You don't take walks?
Really? I don't walk. No, my wife walks. She's Anglo-Saxon. She's used to that.
Oh.
I don't like to exercise. When I was younger, I exercised because my father was a sensei, a teacher of martial arts. I think that's why he was arrested by the FBI. And he's considered a possible troublemaker, right, during the wartime. But so I grew up with that kind of a mentor in my family. I grew up, I have a black belt in karate. I was a real athlete for a while. But no, I mean, I don't like to walk at all. I walk to the bathroom every morning, and I walk to the refrigerator about 40 times a day, and that's it.
Oh my God. So Paul, are there any immediate project right now? Like I know lots of things are closed, and you are currently, what are you working on?
Well, I just finished the trio for the Horzovsky Trio. I just finished a piece for the piano concerto, which I worked on for a year for Hanoi, for the Vietnamese. I've taken on 4. I'm writing pieces for violin and viola for some very good players, Ida Kavavian and her husband, and another one for Glenn Dicterow and his wife, Karen Dreyfus. And major players, right? And I already have a publisher, and I've got 2 of the 4 already written. That's a labor of love. That's, it's something I wanted to do. I have a commission from Seattle Symphony for this this program for it's not the Seattle Symphony, it's members of the Seattle Symphony for the Arboretum project in Seattle, and in San Francisco, a very large project by a dance collective in San Francisco that has to do with the Japanese American relocation camp experience, and they're calling it Ikkai, Ikkai. That means journey or pilgrimage. Okay, so those last two things I mentioned are rather large things. I haven't written a single note yet. I've just been given ideas on what the project is and what the dates are.
So rapid fire becomes a longer question, longer answer, but I don't really mind. When you write music, are you a morning person or are you a night owl?
First of all, I don't sleep very much. I sleep maybe 3 to 4 hours a day, and it's been that way ever since I was young.
Are you serious?
When I went to the doctor, and among many things, and he just said, well, that's just who you are, you know? So I'm very, very active in the morning, but I also get very active in the evening, in my head, I mean. But I do have to take a nap about 4 to 6, sometime in there. If I don't...
Oh, it's a nap time right now!
I know. That's why I'm so talkative.
Sorry, Paul.
No, this is fine. I'm not composing. I'm just...
Yeah. Well, it's so wonderful to talk to you. Before the last question, do you have one question for me? Just one.
Yes.
Be short.
Do you plan to pursue filmmaking?
That's a good question. I see myself as a journalistic filmmaker. So I do lots of real time capturing things. So I will keep doing that at least for now. And then in the meantime, if I can, I probably created more than 30 documentary shorts. So, and then lots of videos, like 600 videos on YouTube.
I asked that question knowing what the answer was, by the way.
Oh, what's the question? What's the answer? Yes or no?
When you went into this, I knew that this was something special for you. And this is not a made-up pastime.
Yeah, I enjoy doing that. It's a very different process than playing musical instrument, because when I play your work, somebody else's work, right? Mm-hmm. So the creation process is very different. But when I do documentary, mostly I do documentaries, and so I shoot, I edit. So the editing process is sort of my voice, right? So it is very subjective, actually. Mm-hmm. It's not objective. So anyway, so it's a different way of create. Yeah. So thank you for asking. All right, last question: tea or coffee?
Tea.
Oh, Sherry said tea is the best. So thank you so much.
Thank you for everybody. Thank you, everybody.
You did a really wonderful.
So let's get together soon.
Yeah, let's get together. Finding some lunch or whatever, breakfast. Okay. Thank you. Say hi to Carol for me.
I will.
And okay, be safe, Paul.
Thank you. You too. Be safe, everybody.
Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you for being there with us. Thank you. Bye.